All right, cool. Welcome everyone. This is I'm like totally lost with which session we're on, but it's probably like our 10th or 11th session so far of finals countdown with the Net College Learning Center. So welcome again. And again, my name is Kwana Yazi. I am one of the professional writing tutors here at the Net College. I am stationed here at the Taylor campus. So yeah, so today I'm actually going to be going over transitions for coherence. That's what the presentation is called. And there's going to be a lot of useful information. Some might be a review for you, but a lot of information for you to just think about when you're going through edits or going through revisions, stuff like that. So as you guys know, like a lot of my presentations are usually like trying to keep you connected with the presenter and trying to keep you thinking about a lot of these concepts and a lot of these different topics, right? Thinking in a different way towards, or like approaching them in a different way specifically, right? So that's sort of how I like to do things, so that you know from the back of your head how to do these assignments and how to think around it and stuff like that. So I'll be going through transitions for coherence and we'll go through it very detailed. So let's see here. Let me share my screen. All right, so let's go ahead and push this. So everyone sees the screen okay? Let me just check really quick. All right, so when we think about transitions for coherence, and the first thing I actually really want to talk about first, the first actual thing is taking a look at, how our minds think, basically. So we're gonna go through this little sort of like test just to see how, just to get your brain firing and seeing how you think about some type of things and stuff like that. So if you were to look at this first question here, imagine a triangle with 4 triangles inside it. How many triangles are there total? Try to open my chat. You can use the chat box if you want, or you can unmute yourself. Whoops. So we have an answer of 16. Does anyone else want to answer as well? Let's see. Sorry, having some issues with my mouse. Let's take a step back. Let me start this. Let me use my iPad as a chat. All right, so I don't see any other answers on there. So we do have an answer of 16. So the answer to this one's actually, I believe 5, because you have a triangle, right? And then when you put 4 inside of it, there's 4 plus that other triangle at the very outside. So when we go to the second one, how do you interpret this information? So we have an 8 minus A. All right, so I'm having trouble with my screen right now. Can you see anything?
What I've seen on this end is x. If x equals 24 and p equals 16, what is x minus p minus a?
All right, I need to restart because my whole entire presentation just froze on me, but I'm sorry. The Zoom is kind of frozen on me. All right, what do you guys see now? Okay.
We see your whole presentation.
All right, let's just keep it on this just so I don't mess up anything. But let's look at this again. We're on to this one, right? If x equals 24 and p equals 16. Hold on. All right. All right, can someone give me a mic check or audio check?
Check.
Okay, I hear you. All right, let's go start all the way back over. So we went into this one. Sorry, I lost my train of thought, but if x equals 24 and p equals 16, what is x minus p minus a? So it's like a mathematical question. So the answer to this one's actually relative to the number line of, not number line, but the alphabetical sort of like, because X is the 24th letter of the alphabet, right? And then P is the 16th letter, but then A is the first alphabet. So when you substitute those numbers, 24 minus 16 minus A, you'll get an answer of like 1, right? Or A is the, sorry, I'm confusing myself. A is the 1, right? So when you substitute 24 here, and then 16 minus 1, your answer is going to be 7. So the answer to this one here is 7, this answer. So just to think about that. So the next one is, what is the next number in this pattern? Right, so we got 64, 16, 25, 16, 49, and 64. Yeah, so 64 is right on this one. So then let's take a look at this one here. What do these things have in common? Apples, elephants, orange irises, and yeah, Utah. So Michael got this one. They start with vowels, A, E, I, O, U. So let's take a look at this sentence. Now we're sort of transitioning into like sentences. So Turnbull chooses words that could be found in any newspaper. Go ahead and read it through. Like a newspaper writer, he writes it so most readers at a grade 9 level could read it. They are also at most 1 or 2 syllables. It makes this very readable and informal, and they create a nice style. So for this one, what's happening is that when you take a look at this here, this entire phrase, there's something happening between the transitioning relative to like who the actual subject is, each sentence is talking about. So when you take this first sentence, Turnbull chooses words that could be found in any newspaper. And then transitioning into the next sentence, like a newspaper writer, he writes it so most readers at a grade 9 level could read it. What's happening here with these two first sentences is that Turnbull, or this person that's writing, is sort of relating Turnbull to being a newspaper writer, right? But they're not actually telling, they're not actually really, or Turnbull's not actually a newspaper writer, right? But the person is writing that he's kind of is like it. But then when he transitioned into this next sentence, he writes it. That it portion there is not really pointing towards Turnbull writing this newspaper writer portion, right? So there's that really different misconnection that's happening between these two sentences. So it's crucial to know like what your subject is and what each term is actually pointing to before you move into these different sentences. This is like the super broken down portion, but what this presentation is actually going to focus on is like the bigger, larger parts of transitioning essays and research, right? So when we begin to look at our presentation, a keyword to note within our title of this presentation is transition. And transition is basically, organization of information, right? Like literally all of these pieces of puzzles that you have and how you like connect those pieces together to make things transition. So it's basically puzzle pieces transitioning. They're like elements basically. And then the next part is the word coherence. And what coherence is basically pointing towards things that make logical sense, things that are logical, things that are sort of like consistent in a way. So we're like totally just using our mind and looking at how structure forms to create what we need to discuss and stuff like that. So when we look at the words transitioning for coherence, we're basically combining all of that, combining structure, combining our mind and thinking of how we put together information all within one. So that's what we're actually going to talk about, how to transition to make things logical. So then when we start to begin, we're going to begin with the structuring phrase. And what you see within this whole entire presentation, you'll see this brain. And these are actually like things to note when you're going to be going through structuring and stuff like that, or transitioning. So just keep these in mind as well. So structure, when we think about structure, we have an arrangement of and relation or in relations between different parts and elements. So this is a crucial part, and I always tell students about this all the time, about how transitioning is a key part of writing, because if we don't have this, we basically are not really connecting to our audience or the people that we're writing for. So one key thing to note before we move on in this presentation is remembering the base structure of essays, right? And there is different formats out there of essay structure specifically, but this is the base normal 5-paragraph essay. So we have our essay structure, general base structure of research, essays, all types of writing. So they go off of this general structure, including an introduction, which always includes like hook sentence, background information, summary, and a thesis statement. This thesis statement is crucial in the development of ideas within an entire essay. So you have to have a thesis statement that is present within an essay, basically. So the thesis statement is always going to be in the introduction. And then moving forward to the body portion, which should be like 3 paragraphs at the minimum. But these body portion, they're just going to be supporting details that support that thesis statement. So anything that is within the thesis statement as a support should be written out as their own paragraphs within the body itself. And then you have the conclusion, which, you know, reinstates all of the main points within your entire essay itself. And then reinstating the supporting details, and then having some sort of call to action, something that provides insight, and just like totally wrapping up the entire thing, right? So this is the base structure, and we all know how to put the information like this. But the next thing I want to talk about is sort of thinking in an entirely different way. And sometimes instructors don't actually like cover our way of thinking basically, which is our next thing that we're going to go into, which is things like thought patterns. I don't know if any of you have heard of thought patterns, but they're these like different ways of thinking, basically, how other people think. And if you know me, you know, within, like, if I give you feedback, or, you know, if you come to me for tutoring, I always tell you to take into consideration of your students, not the students, you know, your audience, right? How do you think they think about the information that you're providing for them? So thought patterns are actually a crucial way into developing ideas and organizing information so that your audience will know what you're actually talking about, right? And, you know, within thought patterns specifically, they're also called organizational patterns. That's another word for it. And there's like different things like spatial order, emphatical order, time order. There's like causal order, topical order, and then problem and solution. There's a whole bunch of different types of ways of thinking that we incorporate within our writing itself. So if we go back to the slide, which I already lost, you know, there's other things like color order, which, you know, was very present in like videos and stuff like that. You know, it's good to always kind of research this information, just so that you understand what kind of types of writing is out there. But the main thing I wanted to talk about within these portions here is looking at how these types of thought patterns can help you organize information within your essay itself. So I'm only gonna go through like the most common ones, sort of like emphatic order. So emphatic order is like literally organizing information by how strong things are. So like what's most important to what's least important. So coming back to the essay structures, right? Introduction, the body of work, and then the conclusion. Within the body portion itself, this is where a lot of that information is going to be shifting around based off of what you're going to be writing about, right? And there's different types of ways to approach writing an essay. And in this case, in emphatical order, like I said, you can begin with the most important or like the most supportive to your thesis statement, and then end with the least important and then the least supportive, basically, and then ending with the conclusion. So that's one way, is using emphatical order, organizing information by how strong it is or by how least it is, either way you want. Whichever way can, you know, bring your reader to understand what you're actually talking about, to make your point. You can also switch it around, start with the least important or least supportive, and then end with the most important, which I think this one would be more logical in a sense, because you want to save the best for last, right? So most important would be the last one. And then other ways to think about other thought patterns we have are like time order. So time order basically deals with time, right? How to logically put things in order based off of time. You know, time order is pretty basic, so you can just literally do it by time. So you have like you know, if you're doing a history report or any type of history report or a history essay, you want to put things in order, right? So you can use time literally, just as you see here, or you can do things like, you know, sequential stuff, like things that like a process, basically. The process essays would work well with using time order within the essay itself. So you have like here a sequential or slash time order. So you have like an example here saying like, if you were to harvest corn, right? Or yeah, what would you do with corn if you plant corn? You would harvest it, prepare the corn, some as food, some you keep as dried corn for planting, and so forth. And you collect the corn pollen. You know, see, there's that process there is happening so that we don't get lost, so your audience doesn't get lost within the information itself. So that's sequential and time order. And the next one we're going to cover is spatial order. So this one's more present in like, you know, creative writing, descriptive writing, basically. If you were asked to like make, you know, write an essay about how to get from this point to maybe your house or something, right? How would you put your reader in a space that they're actually there, huh? Right? So, you know, there's a whole bunch of different ways depending on the type of thought patterns, and we'll cover that later on the presentation of what to look out for when you're doing these transitions. So as an example of spatial order, you know, if like the example I said, right, if we were to explain, let's say geographical locations on the navigation, right? And, you know, just thinking off of the back of my head, east, south, west, north, center, and so forth, right? You know, just thinking of the way of our Deneb paradigms, right? We always start from the east and then go all the way around to the southwest and then north and then come back to the center, right? So, you know, just thinking that order as an example, that's how we would put things in order, right? If we were to write something like that with a geographical, you know, just like an essay explaining geographical locations on the Navajo Nation, we would put it in that order, maybe. That would be an example. And then, you know, a lot of these types of, this type of thought patterns actually exist in like, I know that I wanted to play a video here at this point, a music video actually that explains, sort of puts this into action basically with the music video that I always play for students. And, you know, it's not just within writing that you see a lot of these things, these thought patterns, that how people put together things. You can see them literally in like movies and music videos and stuff like that. And, you know, you'll see, try to think outside of the box, look at these videos, music videos, any type of video you see, how do you see these directors actually putting together information to, you know, hook us into the movie itself, to help us understand what it's about and stuff like that, right? And, you know, the thought patterns are basically a way to think outside of the box to actually organize information so that you don't lose anyone within the actual writing itself or whatever it is. The next one is topical order. This one's the most common. You know, every time we write an essay, we always have to talk about the topics, right? So organizing information by subtopics within a larger topic. So it's most commonly used. So we usually use this all the time without even knowing about it. So, you know, you have like an introduction, thesis statement, relativity here. And then your body work would just have supporting details that support the thesis itself, right? And then each of these supporting details are one topic, and then you have a whole bunch of different things within that topic, right? So this is topical order, and this is the most common one that we use a lot. And then the next one is causal order. So this one is cause and effect, organizing information by cause and effect. This one's also most common. We always fall into, you know, cause and effect essays and stuff like that. So cause and effect is basically organizing information by cause, and then immediately after effect, cause, effect, cause, effect, cause, effect, as many times as you want, all the way to the conclusion. Or in some cases, you know, if it makes logical sense, we can actually do like a cause and then an effect. So putting all the causes out there first, and then coming back to another portion to talk about all of the effects, right? So it's really up to you to organize information and how you think people will interpret that information. So, you want to keep all of that in mind when you're writing essays. So that's usually what I always focus on when it comes to essays itself. So every time I look at students' essays, I look at structuring and stuff like that. So then, after you sort of think about this, after you like did an outline or anything like that, when you've done the outline, now you're actually writing the essay itself, right? Writing out the paragraphs and stuff like that. And sometimes it can be hard to transition those supporting details by paragraphs, right? So you sort of need some help in, when you look online or anything, you can actually look online to look at what we call, transitional words and phrases. There's a whole bunch of dictionaries and writing centers out there that have a whole bunch of this information already out there, but you can use like, dictionaries, thesauruses and stuff like that to make up your own transitional words. But transitional words and phrases are like crucial to transition a lot of those paragraphs or those sections or whatever within the body of work itself. So a lot of students, tend to overlook actually the usage of transitional words. So, just looking at this here, this table that I come up with just some of them. So this is not like all of them, because there is thousands and thousands of transitional words out there and they can be created anytime. So, just looking at emphatical order, these are some examples that you can use to actually transition from one portion to another, right? And transitional words are actually really crucial to, not let the reader or your audience, out of your sight basically in your writing. So sometimes they can wander off somewhere else, and some of your information might be, a little bit disorganized and stuff like that. These transitional words, you can insert them at certain places, and they can help you bring your reader back to one sort of one path basically. So you don't want your reader to go overreach to different things, different topics and stuff like that. So spatial order, you have like nearby, inside, outside, to the left, to my right, under me, beyond me, creating that space for someone to actually see that they're actually there, right? So space orders, that's an example of space order. And then you have time, which deals with, common ones like first, second, third, finally. There's actually some really, really cool, interesting transitional words and phrases if you look them up, but these are like the most common ones that you see all the time. All right, so the next part we go into after, looking at transitional words. And I can't really give a whole bunch of examples of these because, again, there's a whole bunch of different types of thought patterns out there that involve different types of logic reasoning and stuff like that. So I only chose the ones that are very common. And, I always tell students about that. There's a whole bunch of different other thought patterns that you have to like sort of meet halfway to create some of these transitional words. So the next part is, types of transitions that happen within an essay itself. So, transition between information based on preceding elements. So I believe there's only like 3 types, and it sort of like breaks it down into 3, much larger one and a smaller one and a really smaller one. So, starting from the biggest portion, we have, transitions by section, between sections. And this one's mostly used within larger text, longer writing. And, a way to format those kind of things is basically within section 1, you have general information or discussion or topic or basic anything. This portion here that I'm showing you is like within the body of work. It's not the intro or the conclusion. So we're in a portion where we're talking about the actual information, the research or something. So section 1 would be general information discussion. And then in section 2, this would actually be the information from before. So you're specifying relevance of the information from the previous section. So section 2 is more information or relevant information about section 1. Or you can do it opposite and do, section 2 will be relevant information of section 3. Whoops. Sorry. So you kind of see that that difference there, right? And I'm having trouble with my Mac for some reason. It won't let me see like my cursor and stuff like that. So it's really hard to see when it will transition to the next slide and stuff like that. So again, section 1, general information. Section 2 specifies information from section 1, or you can do opposite, specify relevance of this section 2, which will be relevant in section 3, right? So it's really opposite in how you switch up information. It's based off of how you're going to be interpreting information or what type of information you have. The next one we have is transitioning between paragraphs. And this example I'm going to have here is actually paragraph patterns. And this is a structure of paragraphs. So we have your paragraph, right, which is the main idea. So this portion here that I'm showing you is a paragraph within the body of work again. So it's one main idea. So then within a paragraph, we have the main idea. You usually start with the topic sentence. And then you have your supporting details, which you should have 3, just as you have like 3 supporting details within the body of work itself. But within a paragraph specifically, you should have at least 3 as well, or 3 sort of like topics, or 3 ideas basically that are relevant to the topic sentence. And then you would end with a transition sentence. So this transition sentence here, that's where we're going to insert, a lot of those transitional words and phrases, sometimes in the topic sentence as well. So that's where you want to actually put those transitional words within the transition sentence or within the topic sentence, so that, they're relative to the information from before, and they'll be relevant to the information within the next portion, right? So let's go keep that in mind as well. And then the last one is transitions between sentences. This is all the way break down into sentences. So like going back to, parts of speeches like pronouns, combining sentences, repetition, right? Within the sentences portion, like sentence structures. So there is transitioning that needs to happen as well within these sentences so that we don't lose a reader, because, subject verb agreement and stuff like that can also affect how people interpret the information you give them. So pronouns, combining sentences, repetition. So as an example here, I want you to read these 3 sentences, or these 3 portions here. So I want you to choose 1, 2, or 3, which one you feel is correct. You can use the chat box. So the first one is, I like paragraphs. Writing them can be fun and easy if you know what principles to follow. They are essential. I like paragraphs. Writing paragraphs can be fun and easy if you know what principles to follow. They are essential. I like paragraphs. Writing paragraphs can be fun and easy if you know what principles to follow. Paragraphs are essential. So which one do you think is more logical in a sense, or is more coherent? We have a sentence 3, we have a sentence 2, and a sentence 3. All right, so the most logical one here, I believe, is, I didn't remove is actually going to be sentence 2. The only reason why is because this is one of those things that relate to, what some of the words within the sentence itself is saying. So like if you look at this sentence here, I like paragraphs. So the subject in I like paragraphs is me, right? And paragraph is like the subject basically. So when we say writing paragraphs can be fun and easy if you know what principles to follow, we're still focusing on paragraphs, right? But then this next sentence, they are essential, we're still talking about paragraphs, right? Because there's a relationship happening between the second and the third sentence. But if we look at the other two, let's start with the top one. I like paragraphs. Writing them can be fun and easy. So the them is actually referring to paragraphs, right? So now look at the third sentence. They are essential. When we look at that there's a misconnection in not knowing what they is actually referring to. Because from the previous sentence, them is talking about paragraphs, but now what is they talking about within the previous sentence, right? Is it talking about, there's literally no subject within the second sentence, basically, which we can't relate that third sentence to, right? Same thing with the bottom one, or the bottom one is technically right. That's technically true. I like paragraphs. Writing paragraphs can be fun and easy if you know what principles to follow. Paragraphs are essential. But this is one of those that, when it comes down to writing some tips and stuff like that, a good way to actually reduce repetition, because the repetition that's happening within the third portion here is paragraphs, right? The paragraphs is really really repetitive. So we can actually combine sentences to, make them logically correct, but we need to know what these pronouns are actually pointing to, just as we saw in the first one, right? What is them and they? What are they actually referring to, basically? Try to keep those in mind. And the next one is another example. And I believe this one has 4 examples that you need to choose from. So we have, writing is not always easy. Writing can be hard sometimes. Some people, I don't know what that one says. And then I'll just lay them out for you here. There should be 4. All right, which one do you think is most coherent? We have a third and a third again. So for this one, I believe it's going to be the 4th one. Again, the 3rd one is actually grammatically correct, right? Because a lot of the pronouns are actually pointing to the previous sentence of what it actually is. So let's look at this 4th sentence here. All right, great. All right, so my computer decided to freeze on me again. All right, let me switch to my iPad. All right, so we have this portion here. I'm just going to write on this. So these 4 sentences here, the actual correct one is going to be this one here, this 4th one. The only reason why is because, this one again is technically correct because writing is not always easy. In fact, it can be hard. This it is actually referring to writing itself. And then writing starts with the next sentence starts with a whole nother subject. So it's introducing a new subject here, right? So if we were to put if we put it right here in place of writing, then this would be wrong because we don't know what it is referring to, basically, right? So this one here down at the bottom is also correct, but it's actually combining sentences together. So it's basically combining this sentence with this sentence as comparison. So, but it comes more easily to those who read it a lot. What's happening here on the top is that there's a repetition that's happening here within the subjects itself. So writing, writing, writing. So we kind of want to eliminate a lot of those repetition. And the next one, this is like not relevant at all. Some people read a lot. Well, we're talking about writing, but all of a sudden we shift to read a lot, right? And I always talk about that with students when I look at their papers, try to look at the paper itself, like read it out loud, and then, try to I like to take like a marker or like a highlighter and then like cross shift it, like not like write a really like thick line within some of these transitions that I have. So when I do that, I do this as well within papers as I do this line because it shows that there's like a sudden shift within information that's being put within the essay itself. So when I do this, I tell students to sort of fill in more information here to transition these two different ideas. So try to look for these sudden shifts, basically. And, if it's relevant or not, try to remove them as much as possible, basically. So just some things to remember within my other one that I had, this is an incomplete one, but you want to look for structure. You have to know what essay structures are. So looking at a base structure just like this one would actually help in organizing information. And then keep in mind of thought patterns. So take a look at how other people interpret information, how you can actually visualize and outline the information for yourself and for your writing and for your audience, basically. So how do you think they can interpret the information? And there's a ton of thought patterns out there, right? Spatial, topical, time, problem solution, emphatical, causal. There's there's a whole ton. There's like color as well, and so forth. And then keep in mind of transitional words. You can use the sources, dictionaries that are out there. There's a whole bunch of writing centers out there on the web that you can go to that have already like charts of transitional words that you can use within your essays. And then types of transitions. Look for transitions within sections, and then look for transitions within paragraphs, paragraph patterns specifically. Within a paragraph, you should have a topic sentence, supporting details of that topic sentence, and then transition sentences within the end of it, and use transitional words and phrases. And then keep in mind of pronouns and transitions between sentences itself. So take a look at pronouns specifically and how they relate to previous sentences and how they relate to the following sentences. So those are only things I wanted you to keep in mind when you go through, transitioning itself. So think outside of the box and look at the whole idea of this presentation was, introducing you to thought patterns, taking a look at how other people interpret information on their own, see how you can approach them halfway, and then, have that discussion within the essay itself, basically. So that's all I wanted to cover for today. And if anyone has any questions, you can go ahead and ask some questions if you want. My whole presentation was very glitchy. I apologize about that. For some reason, this side, my Mac, it was not working with my keynote presentation, so I apologize about that. But yeah, does anyone have any questions about anything relative to thought patterns or anything like that? Yeah, we can have a little discussion about it. I still have to give you guys the evaluation. Let me do that really quickly here. So what assignments is everyone doing so far? Let me go ahead and pause or stop the live stream on Facebook. And let me stop the recording here on this side.